Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to PBA at Noon. If this is your first time joining us, I'm Paul Benwell, and I'm joined by my colleague, Sophie Caesar. We hope you are enjoying your summer. Thank you for joining us. We are very excited to have back with us for the third time AEP CEO and President Dirk Maritz. Atlas Engineered Products is a well-established operation in Canada's truss and engineered products industry. AEP is uniquely positioned for growth, having acquired 6 companies in just over a year and recently reported a 14% growth in revenues. Despite the pandemic and current market conditions, AEP is still in a solid financial position, having successfully closed an oversubscribed private placement in Q1 of 2020. Dirk, whenever you're ready, go ahead. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. From an Atlas Engineered Products perspective, I want to say thank you for you being part of this webinar. And I want to introduce you to our business, which is uniquely positioned for growth. AEP's family of companies is scattered across British Columbia, Manitoba, as well as Ontario. We have profitable locations in each one of these. And we have just announced in this last week that we're in the final stages of closing a new entry into the lower mainland BC, a hugely buoyant market. And that closing is happening over the next couple of days. Our services include design, engineering, and permitting services. We are expert engineers. We are specialist designers who designs roof trusses, wall panels, flooring systems, and other engineered wood applications. Like you can see, for example, in this next slide, flooring systems and flooring trusses that we do. We're doing wall panels prefabricated in many applications, from residential to light commercial, light industrial applications. We're doing roofing systems, roof trusses for the residential build, as well as the light commercial and industrial systems markets. And we're also supplying windows and doors. Our clients include individual home builders, single-family home building, multi-family high-rise and subdivision developers. We have lumber yards and specialty building yards. And we also have industrial developers that's forming part of our clientele. Our clients choose us because we save them money. The products that we offer is a full service solution to our clients. It's cost effective and efficient. Because of our national buying power and because of our consolidation of this market across Canada, we can actually increase the economy of scale in that, and we can drive costs down and margins up. We have best-in-class design and production and automation technologies. We save our clients time. On-site customized manufacturing versus on-site stick framing, the traditional way that construction has been done in wood construction, is up to 5 times faster than the traditional stick frame construction. We provide expanded product offerings. The floors, roofs, walls, and engineered components forms a true turnkey one-stop product solution to our clients, a full lockup package. And this is very important because we're not only saving our clients time, we're not only saving them money, but now, as opposed to them dealing with dozens and dozens of different suppliers, we're actually becoming and supplying them a full lockup package. And we are environmentally friendly. Our product ranges, wood uses less energy to manufacture, it's responsible, it's renewable, and it has fewer emissions and waste. In this market, Atlas Engineered Products really has first mover advantage. There's nobody else in the public market that's doing what we're doing. This market, well over a $2.5 billion industry, consists of hundreds and hundreds of small regional operators with sales in the range of typically 3 to 15 million, with only a handful of regional operators slightly larger than that. The market is fragmented, highly fragmented by ownership. It is consisting of families where these families have been having these businesses in some instances for generations or for many, many years. The kids are now doctors and lawyers, and there's very little succession to take place. AEP offers them an opportunity to actually monetize their lifelong work. And from that perspective, we step into that gap, and we are busy and we are on a mission to consolidate this industry. When you're looking at the manufactured wood market, the size of the market is actually huge, $2.5 billion. The average revenues for these hundreds and hundreds of companies that is in this market is about 700,000. But there's many smaller players in there. Typically, the businesses that we're interested in is in that 3 to 15 million and slightly larger dollar range. 92% of these companies employ less than 100 people. The industry is slow to adopting technology, very slow. Atlas offers the opportunity, because of our economies of scale, to actively research, develop new products, new solutions, new design methods, and we can actually supply that to our clients. The industry are challenged by a huge amount of a shortage in workers. Framers is not that readily available for the huge housing demand. The number of additional construction workers required by Canada is estimated at 300,000 people. Over and above that, over 250,000 people are going to head into retirement over the next few years. Atlas offers the opportunity with a time reduction on site, manufacturing in factory controlled conditions, prefabricated wall panels, flooring systems, roofing systems, building components. Adding that to the construction site reduces a huge amount of labor that is required on site, and it removes a pain point in this industry. What market trends are in our favor? First of all, especially also in scenarios of COVID, we're seeing more and more advantageously priced acquisition opportunities, and that is across Canada and into the US. We're seeing a greater consumption of engineered products. People are following, and in this industry are following, and AEP is pioneering the supply of full lockup packages and factory manufactured products on the floor with less work performed on site. There is a greater demand for easily assembled components. And don't think modular, think high-end, think custom buildings, think multi-story residential developments. We're controlling the construction value chain with the first touch point as a supplier, through our design, through our engineering capabilities. In this fragmented industry, we are, most of the players in that $3 to $15 million range are also not, it's not possible for them to have the capital to invest into transformation. AEP has that. But the most important thing is, in a small cap environment, many companies have not commercialized their ideas. They have not generated operating revenues, nor have they realized growth. AEP has done all three of this in less than 2 years. Like you can see from the graphs that are in front of you, around a year ago, just over a year ago, this was an $11 million company that has grown to a $35 million company. It was doing approximately $1.4 million worth of EBITDA at the time, which has grown to 3.7, or on the normalized level, $4.5 million. Compared to December 2018, where the company has actually done $13.4 million and a small loss on the EBITDA line, this business is trending the right way. What have we delivered to date? Gross margin expansion of 26%, revenue growth of over 200% 2019 over 2018, and EBITDA growth of 320% increase 2018 to 2019. When you're looking at our numbers as at December, and we will be issuing our Q2 results shortly, there you can see a snapshot, 13 million to 34 million, gross profit from 3 million to 8.4 million, operating, suddenly we're in an operating income position, and the normalized EBITDA of 4.4 million. Cash on hand at the time was 1.7 million, and like Paul has mentioned, we've done the private placement, and we have actually during the period of COVID managed to hang on to that. What is the impacts of COVID been on our industry? I want to make it clear that AEP has been deemed an essential service in all of the locations where we were operating. In Q1, we have reported a 14% growth, Q1 2020 over Q1 2019. We were slightly impacted by material costs at the back end of the quarter when lumber prices fell through the floor, but that has been corrected, and Q2 is actually looking really good going forward, as I have mentioned in previous press releases. Our AEP geographic footprint proved to be an asset during the pandemic. You know, not all territories was created equally during this pandemic. Our BC operations, for example, was bursting out of its seams, and it still is, and it continues to do so. Just on the basis of 2019 to 2020, even during the pandemic to the end of May, a 3.5% growth in new home sales. Our Manitoba business was minimally impacted. They were actually ahead of our targets. And we had only one business in Ontario that had been impacted by the pandemic. Really good job that the team has done to reduce costs, to have a great and effective cash preservation and cost reduction program that was implemented. We safeguarded the cash proceeds from the oversubscribed private placement to have it available for our acquisition plans in 2020. We achieved significant cost reductions, and we actually continue to do so as we speak from March onwards, and that will also positively impact our results going forward. But the interesting thing is, as we're moving out of COVID, there's a housing rally happening, not only south of the border, but also in Canada, across all the territories that we're seeing. 69% of respondents cited that they have bought homes over the last 2 months for the reason of COVID. The question is why? And I'll get to that in the next slide. Home buying activity has really seen a V-shaped recovery as home buyer demand rebounded significantly further in May and June. De-urbanization, de-densification, and Sunbelt migration are all key drivers for the home building cycle that we're witnessing at this point. What does that mean? It means that people are actually looking at homes in suburbs. People are actually looking at condo developments out of some of the city core areas. And that is driving a huge demand in the core market where AEP is actually operating. Like I mentioned, 69% of buyers citing that COVID-19 has been a factor in their buying decisions. Home buyers are attracted by historically lower mortgage rates. This is so important. You know, when you're looking at historic low mortgage rates, every single time that there's going to be a reduction in mortgage rates, the first industry with the most linkages that's impacted through it is the building and construction industry. We see the same thing happening right now. And that, coupled with a limited existing resale inventory, is really making it hard and difficult for us to see that this trend is not going to continue. COVID-19 has also caused renters to increasingly consider home ownership. And some, which is essentially the millennial age group, are now looking at entering into the home ownership market now that a lot of I can work from home model has actually been achieved. But the biggest silver lining for AEP from COVID is attractive merger and acquisition valuations. Never has there been a more favorable time to aggressively look at what that does and how we can actually structure deals more creatively. And we're working on that continuously. Our assets are that we have a quality leadership team, experienced workforce, great facilities and equipment, stellar available capacity. We have access and we are focused on innovation and automation, economies of scale. We have a physical footprint that is growing, and we have access and are actively researching and developing. We have a strong executive team supported by a brilliant board of directors across many industries. And from that perspective, I want to wrap up this short presentation to say that AEP is a market leader, and we're growing our footprint, we're growing our profitability, and we're growing our organic growth rates. We currently have businesses in British Columbia, Manitoba, and Ontario. We have just in the closing stages of our 7th acquisition. We have multiple avenues for growth through consolidation and disruption, but also strong organic growth through product diversification and customer penetration. There are positive industry trends despite what we see out there. And quality prefabricated building components are essential way of how homes are going to be constructed in the future. We have a strong and building record of profitability, and we have a capable leadership team. Ladies and gentlemen, in a snapshot, that is the AEP opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dirk. We've had a couple of questions while you were presenting. I know you touched on this in your presentation, but one of our attendees wants you to go in a little bit deeper on the effect COVID has had on AEP and the stock price downward in the past 6 months. How do you see the future?
I think the COVID pandemic has it has had positives and it has had negatives. Like I've mentioned, not all locations has been created equally or has been affected equally. One of the big things that we've learned through COVID is because of our geographic spread, it actually helped us to diversify and to hedge us against risk in any specific area. Has it done anything on the revenue side? We're actually, as an essential service, we've managed to actually hold our own and in Q1 actually grow it. But we have also scaled our business accordingly. And we've probably gone a little bit and we continue to make sure that we're actually taking all costs out of the business. One negative impact from the pandemic for us was one operation, like I mentioned earlier, was negatively impacted, mainly because of their customer profile. We've scaled that business, and the great news of that is with what we've done there, we've actually halved that business's break-even point. What a beautiful place to be in right now to actually take and grow the business further and really make some good coin off that business going forward. I think another thing from the COVID pandemic that is very important, cash is king. For us, it was all about cash. We didn't necessarily take all the profitability actions, if it competed with a short to medium-term cash perspective. And the reason for that is plain and simple. We wanted to protect the cash resources that we have so that we can actually execute on our M&A program. So there's been a lot of that. I think as the markets are going to learn what we're doing over the next quarter or two, we're going to see a significant increase potentially. And I'm speculating, but I would hope that it is going to be seen. And as we actually execute on some of the larger acquisitions, that it is going to be more apparent. So how well we're actually executing and navigating this storm. Sophie, I can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
You're actually right. My apologies. There's a question here to explain the M&A possibilities in the future, please.
I think what we need to look at the M&A possibilities of the future is we have an active list of M&A opportunities that we're working on. What I have seen is that the valuations at this point in time is coming in extremely attractive. There are opportunities for really creative deal structuring. For example, now you could have scenarios where you have high percentages of deals being financed through vendor take-back financing, earn-outs, etc., etc. That's reducing the cash component of what you need to do. We have financing structures in place to actually execute on it. And from the perspective of some deals, I think it's important that we really look at our strategic partnerships, that we're looking at how we're actually putting them together, in what geographies, taking into account that we're living in a changing world and that we're going to be very cash focused and making sure that we actually can do that. But from an M&A perspective, I can categorically tell you that some of the opportunities that we're seeing out there in the marketplace, some of them are very large, very attractive opportunities that's coming in at significant or very competitive sort of valuations.
Excellent. Do you have any intents to expand into other regions?
The question to that is a categoric yes. We're valuing and evaluating at this point in time. You know, we have to be very cognizant of what we're doing. We currently have, for example, opportunities that is potentially in areas that has been more affected by COVID, which makes you a little bit more cautious on how and when you're actually doing that. And in other areas, we're actually looking at areas that has not been that impacted through the sickness or the illness itself, but is actually now battling other economic sort of, how can I call it, factors. But what happens is it's put those valuations in significant different spaces. And from that perspective, we're continuing to grow that. And we're looking at each one of these areas on an individual basis, but with a lot more due diligence, also from a health perspective and a pandemic perspective.
Great. This question, can you elaborate on why you chose, it's referring to the recent acquisition, I believe. Can you elaborate on why you chose the plant that you did in the current ongoing acquisition?
Yeah, you know, this has actually been a super smart little acquisition for us. Okay. It's a smaller player on mainland BC. Mainland BC has shown, as I've mentioned earlier, even growth over the 2020 housing sales. That is huge for us. we decided that we wanted to fast track our plans in BC. We were looking at, for example, how to enter the mainland BC business, because we were really only focused on the island up to date. Now think about this. We're going to be reaching over 3 million people from that location. 16 of the 31 most populous census and municipal areas is around that facility. We paid dirt cheap for that acquisition, really did. And we specifically also did something different, where in the past we bought or did a share purchases. We actually were in the position where we could pick and select the assets that we wanted to do, negotiate an outstanding low-cost entry point structure, and now we can actually upgrade with existing equipment, no additional capital required, that facility to be a multi-million-dollar business in that lower mainland market. From our perspective, that is a smart acquisition. It didn't cost us a lot of money, low cost of entry point, and then we can add huge, huge, huge growth potential.
Would you consider entering other types of construction, such as industrial or hospitality?
I think that is not off the cards. Our product diversification strategy has been very aggressive. We started off with a revenue profile of the businesses in which we acquired, 85 to 90%, depending on the plant, of their revenues only coming from roof trusses. During last year, we researched, developed, commercialized, and introduced wall panels and prefabricated wall panels to the business. We started that in the east of Canada. We did a small hotel actually in the US at that point in time. We've done 1 or 2 projects on subdivisions. And we've now bringing it down back to British Columbia, where there's a huge demand for it, and we actually are commissioning that plant as we speak. We've done engineered wood. We started that in Western Canada. You know, these days, some months up to 50% of our revenues are generated of engineered wood. A few weeks ago, we've announced that we've got a deal with a large supply of engineered wood to also enter now the Eastern Canadian market. So from that perspective, we're very, very active in product diversification, market diversification, et cetera, et cetera. And our customer profile continues to be expanding. So to get into those markets, yes, we will. But some of those markets are also predominantly steel, concrete, and other combinations. So it's matching where we have our core skill sets today to those applications, and making sure that we're not just going, that we remain focused on delivering that growth. Down the line, 100%, it's a real, genuine opportunity to get into those products as well.
Great. We have a lot of questions here. There was one, earlier you stated that AEP would achieve a $7 million revenue run rate in 2020. Is that still the projection?
A 70
million revenue run rate.
Okay. We are targeting internally on an organic basis only, roughly about a $40 million target for this year. I want to make that clear. With acquisitions, we are still targeting the upper limit in that $65 to $70 million range. If all of those pans out, it remains what we have publicly stated when we went out on the private placement. That's our goal. I cannot, unfortunately, at this point in time, state anything more than that.
Thank you. We'll have one more question. It's multifaceted, and then I'll hand it over to Paul. If your main material for building components is from Canadian FSC managed forests, what are the plans when expanding into regions that do not have FSC managed forests? Also, shipping heavy inventory of wood components would negatively impact carbon footprint. Would you look into steel in those regions, and does your team have the expertise for steel innovation building components? If you need me to repeat any of that, let me know.
Sorry, Sophie, can we just summarize and give me that question again? I just want to make sure I understand it.
So this person is talking about how some of the regions that you're expanding into do not have Canadian FSC managed forests. So do you plan on shipping that? Do you plan on looking at steel and as an alternative? To summarize.
First of all is our raw material supply on the lumber side for roof trusses are sourced through a single source that has access to between 30 and 40 different plants and mills scattered across Canada and North America. We have a steady and secured flow and inflow in our supply chain. We had to make sure that we build superior partnerships and to build the economies of scale to actually drive the costs down. Are there going to be opportunities for us in other areas? I can categorically tell you that one of the other advantages of, for example, that came through COVID, we were looking at how fast, for example, some buildings and hospitals around the world was going up. And we looked at technologies and technology partners. We looked at other materials. And there are definitely some items that we are resourcing at this point in time that could be added to the business in strategic partnerships from other players. We would address that as and due we have further developments on that front.
Thank you. Paul, would you like to ask Dirk a couple of questions before we wrap it up today?
Yes, certainly. Great presentation, Dirk. This is a good story. What's your debt position right now, and what are your lines of credit? I mean, do you still have them in place?
Yeah, our debt position, I would say, excluding building use leases, is probably in that sort of a $8 million range. Our lines of credit is unutilized and it is in place. So from that perspective, we're actually fairly strong and liquid at this point.
Okay, the last question is, have you received any government assistance? And if not, you should ask Trudeau because he's given it away. Sorry, I had to.
When we were looking at it, and I want to remind you what I've alluded to earlier and that I've mentioned. Remember that I said that not all locations were created equally. There was no way that we could qualify for any government program, for example, in BC. It was blowing all records out of the water in terms of their revenues and their revenue growth. We literally had one location in which we could, and we did apply for some government assistance. But that's also the location which we scaled and brought down outside of the wage subsidy, the break-even points, and reduced the cost structures in that business and increased the efficiencies and productivities tremendously.
All right, last question is going to be, are you going to reschedule any of your debt facilities as you move forward with further mergers and acquisitions?
I think we're looking at a lot of creative and innovative options in terms of financing going forward. And I'm thinking that we will be using some debt in some of these acquisitions. And we are working on what our overall debt position looks like to make sure that we're actually creating the room to execute on our plans, but B, it has to be supported with good cash flow generating activities. So from that perspective, the short answer is yes, we're looking at all of those, and we continue to do so, and we will make announcements as and when that is available.
Perfect. There was a few other questions out there, but Sophie and I will send them to you, and maybe so we can post them on News of the Week or something, your responses.
Yep, sure.
So we'll make sure that everybody is covered. Dirk, thank you so much. Very much appreciated. We had a great turnout, and I'm sure this story is going to. And I just got a text message. Somebody just bought stock after those two.
Well, Dirk, it's awesome. Always a pleasure to have you present. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and for yourselves and for the viewers, thank you so much. AEP greetings.
All right, take care. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.